We're coming to the end of the FIDE World Cup knockout tournament. In the final, we have Wei Yi against Javier Sindarov. But the really crunch match is the third place playoff between Esipenko and Yakubboev. Remember, the winner of that match will claim the final spot in the candidates tournament. So let's concentrate on that. Remember, in the first game, Yakubboev was defeated, outplayed very smartly by Esipenko. So Yakubboev in this second game is in a must-win situation. However, he does have white. So let's see what happened here. So knight f3, d5 and g3. So Yakubboev not forcing it, playing a steady reti. And Esipenko inviting perhaps a King's Indian attack with d3 and e4. That could be pretty sharp. But Yakubboev goes for c4. And then d3. And this has been quite popular recently. And then knight e5. So this is quite a trendy position. And the most usual moves here are either knight d7 or queen c7. But Esipenko plays something that's very unusual. a6. So black intends playing b5 here. There's a game played in a Blitz tournament in 2025 this year between Divya Deshmukh and Lei Tingjie, which went f4 and b5. And I mean, this advance certainly doesn't look bad. Intending to play the bishop to b7. Yakubboev went for something different. He played queen b3. So that puts a little bit of pressure here. Bishop d6 hits the knight. f4 and queen c7. So pressure on the knight on e5. And Yakubboev thought for 16 minutes in this position. And he came up with something that I find truly extraordinary. If I'd had to predict the continuation from this position, this would have been like number 25. He took on d5, and then he took on d5 again with the bishop. So he's grabbed a pawn. Now, I know he's in a must-win situation. Clearly, he just thought, well, you know, I've got to go for it. But to my eyes, this is just madness. To give up that light squared bishop. Knight c3 looks reasonable. And then, well, this is still quite unbalanced. But, you know, white is in the game. I mean, it's just a normal position. Anything can happen. But to take here, I just could not believe this when I saw it. So Esipenko took on d5. And, well, I mean, there are so many good moves in this position. You could just move out this bishop if you wanted to. But this is incredibly strong. And this is the strongest of the lot because it just brings that light square bishop to the long diagonal very, very quickly. And there's a simple piece of calculation here. I mean, maybe Yakubboev overlooked b5. Perhaps he was anticipating one of the other moves which aren't quite as good. I mean, they still give tremendous compensation, but b5 is just crushing. So the point is, if queen takes rook, then the queen gets trapped. Like this. I mean, it's very simple forcing moves, threatening mate here. And then bishop b8 traps the queen. So if the queen can't take the rook, then the bishop is just coming to b7 very smoothly. That diagonal needs to be closed. Knight f3 is pretty much forced. Well, not quite forced. I mean, you could bring the queen back here and then play e4, but then this gets taken and knight c6, knight e5. Thing is, white's centre is so unstable. It can always be undermined. I mean, possibly that pawn on d3 is going very quickly anyway. But maybe bishop f4 in this position. Exchange that knight off. It's not a good position for white. In any case, knight f3 played. Bishop b7 hits the queen, and it's not. Doesn't have a good square to go to. Try queen h5, but then knight d7. It's going to gain a tempo. Queen h5, knight d7 anyway. So just simple development for black. e4. So Yakubboev wants to close that diagonal, but Esipenko undermines it with c4. So well, I've got lots of arrows on the board there. So let's break this down. You can see that those two diagonals are opening. So the king is going to be caught in a crossfire of those laser beam bishops. Beautiful for black. But also c4 makes room for the knight to come to c5. Looking at those key squares. Bishop e3 played. And now, instead of taking on d3, knight c5, good move. Now, if that's... There's a very nice variation here, actually. If the knight is taken on d4, you might think, away, white's back in the game. But actually, this can be taken. Queen b6, nice pin. Of course, you can play queen takes knight check, and it's better for black, but this is even stronger, bringing the rook into the game. There's going to be pressure here. And if knight e2, okay, watch this, this is really sweet. Just give the exchange, check, and queen e4. So the king is still caught. That's the power of that bishop on b7. I mean, white can go into an endgame, but of course with a beautiful extra pawn on the queen side and the rook coming in, then black must be winning. So e5 played. Bishop e7, look at that bishop. Striking across the board. Laser beam bishop. And now we've got, to make matters worse for white, Esipenko puts in the knight on d3, and what a beautiful octopus that is. Just controlling so many key squares. So that means that those rooks just don't get in the game. In particular, preventing rook c1 is a big deal for the knight. So a true octopus. h4. Perhaps Yakubboev is thinking of putting his king on h2. Rook d8, yeah, just building up very nicely. Bishop c5, very sound. So now the queen comes down, conquering that diagonal, and moves in. Queen e3, beautiful position for the queen. And putting pressure here. Now the queen is never going to be hassled, while the e1 square is covered by that beautiful knight. So closing in for the kill. Now, how did Esipenko finish this one off? So black to play. You have a think, I'll have a drink. Cheers. There are lots of good moves here. Of course, it's not terrible to take that pawn. And there are other decent knight moves. Knight c5 is pretty good, opening up the path for the rook. But knight c1 is a nice bit of flash at the end of the game. So one thing is it breaks the connection with the rooks. That's handy. And rook takes knight is threatened. If knight takes pawn, then queen e2. Check. King goes back. I mean, lots of winning moves, but rook d1 is a bit of a crusher. So that was taken by Yakubboev. Then rook takes knight. If knight takes, then that leads inevitably to a checkmate here. So king g3. And then a nice winning move, queen e2. Here Yakubboev resigned. So Andrei Esipenko wins the second game. Crushing victory. I mean, Yakubboev basically just collapsed in this match. He collapsed at the end, defeated convincingly by his compatriot Sindarov, and now in this match he obviously just ran out of steam at the end of the tournament. So, Andrei Yevgenyevich Esipenko from Russia, would you believe, qualifies for the candidates. I would describe him as a responsible player. He plays according to established strategic rules, only breaks them with good reason. That's when I've mentioned the Russian school of chess or the Soviet school of chess. That's kind of what I've meant. It's quite formal in that sense. Doesn't mean to say he's passive. You know, he's used to attacking, as we've seen in, well, many of his games in this tournament. But he does so from a sound basis. You know, he doesn't like to mess up his pawn structure. He likes a safe king. I thought his tiebreak games against Sam Shankland demonstrated that very well. He soaked up pressure and then hit back once Shankland's initiative had just kind of petered out. We've known how good Esipenko is for some time. If you remember, in the 2021 Tata Steel Masters, he defeated Magnus Carlsen in a classical game. Esipenko was only 18 at the time, so that was pretty cool. And in fact, he finished that Tata Steel tournament with a tournament rating of 28-15. He came equal third. So he's a class act. It'd be very interesting to see how he does. You know, this is a new generation. As I said, he's only 23 at the moment. So we know the candidate spots. We have Esipenko, we have Sindarov, and we have Wei Yi. But we're yet to find out who will actually take the crown. Who will get first place in the World Cup? Because Wei Yi and Sindarov drew a pretty boring game, for it drew very, very quickly today. Both obviously really tired, and they've just gone straight to tie breaks. We've seen it before in these World Cup tournaments. So anyway, tomorrow we'll know who claims first place. Don't forget, tonight, that's Tuesday night, at 7 p.m. UK time, I'll be interviewing Charles Hurton, the author of The Real Paul Morphy. And we'll be talking all things Morphy. I'm looking forward to looking at some of Paul Morphy's sparkling games. Do join us then. You'll find the link for the broadcast all over the channel. See you then, hopefully.